Welcome back to the channel, coin collectors. Today, we are taking a close look at a Canadian 5-cent coin dated 2004. This small coin features the famous Canadian beaver design and the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II. If you have a 2004 Canadian 5-cent coin in your collection, you may be wondering whether it is rare and how much it could be worth in today's collector market. The 2004 Canadian 5-cent coin is a regular circulation coin produced by the Royal Canadian Mint. The coin has a 5 Canadian cents and carries the date 2004 on the reverse. The obverse features the fourth portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, while the reverse shows a beaver sitting on a log, one of the most recognizable designs in Canadian coinage. One interesting feature of this coin is its composition. Unlike older Canadian 5-cent coins that were made from solid nickel, the 2004 circulation issue was made from copper-plated steel. The Royal Canadian Mint gives the modern 5-cent composition as approximately plating. The coin weighs about and measures roughly across. Because of its steel core, it is magnetic. The 2004 issue had a substantial mintage. The Royal Canadian Mint's annual report figures record approximately plated 5-cent coins for 2004, while the current Royal Canadian Mint circulation table lists other specialized Canadian coin references identify the standard 2004p issue with a circulation mintage of. These differences reflect different production or attribution records, but all of the figures show that this was a heavily produced circulation coin, rather than a genuinely scarce regular issue. Now let's talk about condition. A coin described as very fine, or VF, normally shows noticeable signs of circulation, but the major design details remain clearly visible. On this 2004 Canada 5-cent coin, you would want to see the Queen's portrait, lettering, date, and the beaver design clearly defined, although some of the finer details may show wear. For a normal circulated 2004 Canada 5-cent coin in very fine condition, collectors generally should not expect a large premium simply because of the date. Current price guide information places ordinary circulated examples around the range, with one major Canadian coin reference listing approximately $1.50,000 for VF. Numista's indicative values similarly show about $1.75, zero for VF, for the 2004 issue. So, is this coin rare? The answer needs some clarification. A normal 2004 Canadian 5-cent coin in very fine, circulated condition is not considered a major rarity. Its large production numbers mean that many examples remain available to collectors. However, that does not make the coin worthless. It can still be an interesting piece for a Canadian coin collection, especially for collectors building a complete date set. The situation can become more interesting if your coin has an unusual mint error, an important variety, an exceptionally high grade, or a special collector finish. High-grade examples can command substantially more than circulated coins. For example, current market guide figures for the standard 2004p issue show values rising from around, with particularly high-grade examples reaching much higher guide values. This is why collectors should carefully examine their coins rather than assuming that every old-looking coin is automatically valuable. Look closely at the date, the Queen's portrait, the lettering, the beaver, the edge, and the overall surface. Also check whether the coin appears to have an unusual striking error or variety. A genuine mint error can make a common coin much more interesting to collectors. Another important point is that online price guide values are not guaranteed selling prices. The actual amount a collector might pay can depend on condition, eye appeal, rarity, authentication, demand, and the venue where the coin is sold. A coin listed at a particular price does not necessarily mean that it will actually sell for that amount. For a normal 2004 Canadian 5-cent coin in very fine condition, a realistic collector market estimate is approximately $2.50, 0 to $2.75, 0 with around $3.60, 0 being a reasonable guide figure for an ordinary example. Exceptional varieties, errors, special issues, or much higher grades can be worth considerably more. So if you have one of these coins, don't throw it away just because it is a common circulation issue. Keep an eye out for unusual features, compare it carefully with reliable references, and preserve it in good condition. The real excitement of coin collecting is often discovering something unexpected in an ordinary-looking coin. In conclusion, the Canada 5 cents 2004 is an interesting modern Canadian circulation coin featuring Queen Elizabeth II and the classic beaver design. It was produced in large numbers and is therefore not a rare regular issue in very fine circulated condition. Higher grade specimens and genuine errors or varieties can bring significantly greater collector interest. Next up, today we are taking a closer look at a Canadian 5-cent coin dated 1998. This is a familiar-looking coin, but many collectors still wonder whether a 1,998 Canadian 5 cents can be worth more than its, especially when the coin is found in fine condition. The 1,998 Canadian 5-cent coin was produced by the Royal Canadian Mint and features the familiar portrait of Queen Elizabeth II on the obverse. On the reverse is the iconic Canadian beaver design, along with the denomination and date. This classic design has been used on Canadian 5-cent coins for many decades and remains one of the most recognizable designs in Canadian numismatics. The 1,998 issue is a regular circulation coin, and its mintage was quite large. The Royal Canadian Mint records a mintage of pieces for 998. Because such a large number were produced, the ordinary circulated 1,998 Canadian 5-cent coin is not considered a major rarity simply because of its date. In terms of specifications, this coin weighs approximately and measures about in diameter. The 1,998 Canadian 5-cent coin was made from a cupro-nickel alloy consisting of, it has a plain, smooth edge. Now let's talk about condition. The coin in this video is described as being in fine condition. A fine condition coin normally shows noticeable circulation wear, with some details of the portrait and beaver design softened from use, but the major features remain clearly visible. For a common modern Canadian coin, like the 1,998 Canadian 5 cents, condition becomes especially important when determining whether the coin has any collector premium. So, is the 1,998 Canadian 5 cents a rare coin? The answer is generally no for a normal circulated example. The high mintage means that ordinary examples are relatively easy for collectors to find. However, that does not mean the coin has no collectible interest. Coins in exceptionally high grades, attractive uncirculated condition, or with a genuine recognized variety or error can be much more interesting to collectors. Current reference information from lists. The ordinary 1,998 Canadian 5 cents under and confirms the circulation mintage. Its published values show that ordinary examples generally remain inexpensive, with significant premiums reserved for better preserved pieces. For a normal 1,998 Canadian 5-cent coin in fine circulated condition, a realistic collector market value is generally around $2.40, $0 to $2.70, $0 depending on the exact appearance, demand, and seller or buyer. In many cases, a circulated example may trade very close to its. The coin's metal value is also very small. A recent reference lists a melt value of only about $3.70 thousand ton. This is an important point for collectors. Seeing an online listing asking for several dollars, or even much more, does not automatically mean the coin is worth that amount. Asking prices are not the same as confirmed selling prices. The value of a coin should be judged by its actual condition, variety, authenticity, and comparable completed sales. If your 1,998 Canadian 5 cents looks unusually sharp, has strong original details, or appears to have an unusual minting characteristic, it may deserve a closer examination. High-grade examples can attract more attention than ordinary circulated pieces. However, before calling a coin rare, collectors should verify the suspected error or variety using a reputable numismatic reference or professional grading service. Another important tip is to avoid cleaning the coin. Scrubbing, polishing, chemicals, or abrasive materials can permanently damage the original surface and may actually reduce collector appeal. If you have an interesting example, handle it carefully by the edges and store it in a suitable coin holder. So, the final verdict is that the 1,998 Canadian 5 cents in fine condition is not normally a rare or high-value coin. Its large mintage of more than pieces makes ordinary circulated examples common. For a typical fine condition specimen, a reasonable estimate is approximately with substantially higher values possible only for exceptional condition, special varieties, errors, or other verified collectible characteristics. If you have a 1,998 Canadian 5-cent coin, don't throw it away. Take a close look at the date, portrait, beaver design, lettering, edge, and overall condition. Sometimes the most interesting discoveries come from coins that initially appear completely ordinary. Next up, today's video, we are examining the Canada 5 cents 2021 coin in very fine condition, looking at its history, design, specifications, collector interest, and most importantly, the Canadian 5-cent coin is one of the country's most recognizable circulation coins. Its reverse features the famous beaver sitting on a log, a design that has been associated with Canadian 5-cent coins since 1937. The design was created by Canadian artist G.E. Kruger Gray and has remained an important part of Canada's coinage history. The 2021 Canadian 5-cent coin carries the denomination of 5 cents, along with the word Canada and the date 2021 on the reverse. The obverse features the effigy of Queen Elizabeth II. The coin was produced by the Royal Canadian Mint and uses a modern copper-plated steel composition. According to the Royal Canadian Mint, Canadian 5-cent coins from 2000 onward weigh approximately and measure about in diameter. The 2021 issue had a reported mintage of approximately. That is a substantial number, so the ordinary 2021 Canadian 5-cent coin is not considered a major rarity simply because of its date. However, condition can make a significant difference when collectors evaluate modern coins. Now let's talk about the very fine condition. A very fine coin has clearly visible design details but also shows noticeable evidence of circulation. On a 2021 Canadian 5 cents, you should examine the beaver, the lettering, the date, the Queen's portrait, and the overall surface for scratches, dents, discoloration, corrosion, or heavy wear. Because this is a modern circulation coin with a large mintage, a normal circulated example generally does not command a large premium over its current published price guide data for the 2021 Canadian 5 cents. Lists higher-grade mint-state examples at values ranging from roughly with significantly higher figures for exceptionally high grades. The same guide lists approximately and much higher amounts for. These are guide values rather than guaranteed selling prices. For a genuine 2021 Canadian 5-cent coin in ordinary very fine circulated condition, a realistic collector market value is generally around face value to only a small premium, approximately $3.40, $0 to $3.75, $0 depending on the exact condition, appearance, demand, and whether the coin has an interesting variety or error. It would not normally be accurate to claim that every 2021 Canadian nickel is worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. The exciting part for collectors is that condition and unusual characteristics can change the situation. If your coin has an authentic mint error, an unusual striking characteristic, or an exceptionally high-quality surface that approaches mint state condition, its value can be considerably different from a normal circulated example. Collectors should therefore inspect the coin carefully rather than judging it only by the year. Another important point is authenticity and preservation. Do not clean the coin with chemicals, polishing materials, or abrasive products. Cleaning can damage the original surface and may actually reduce its desirability to collectors. If you believe your coin is an unusual error or an extremely high-grade example, professional examination or certification can help establish its true condition. So, what is the final value of a Canada 5 cents 2021 in very fine condition? For a normal circulated example, you should think of it as a common modern Canadian circulation coin with limited collector premium, generally around. Higher values are possible for exceptional grades, varieties, or confirmed mint errors, but those should be evaluated separately rather than assumed for every coin. The 2021 Canadian 5-cent coin is still an interesting piece for collectors because it represents modern Canadian coinage and continues the historic beaver design that has been part of Canada's 5-cent tradition for generations. Next up, today. In this video, we are taking a close look at the Canada 5 cents 1981 coin in fine condition, including its history, design, composition, rarity, collector demand, and its current estimated market value in US dollars. The 1981 Canadian 5 cent coin was issued by the Royal Canadian Mint during the reign of Queen Elizabeth II. The obverse features the second portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, designed by Arnold Machine, with the inscription, Elizabeth Tatken DG Regina. On the reverse is one of Canada's most recognizable coin designs, the beaver sitting on a log, designed by G. E. Kruger Gray. The reverse also displays the denomination of 5 cents and the date 1981. The 1981 issue had a circulation mintage of approximately. That is a substantial production figure, so the normal 1981 Canadian 5 cent coin is not considered extremely rare simply because of its date. However, condition can make a major difference to its desirability and value. This coin was made primarily of nickel. It weighs approximately and measures about in diameter. The edge is smooth, and the coin is magnetic because of its nickel composition. The original face value was 5 Canadian cents. Now let's talk about fine condition. A fine condition coin has experienced noticeable circulation and wear, but the major design elements should still be clearly visible. On the obverse, Queen Elizabeth II's portrait will show moderate wear, while on the reverse, the beaver and surrounding lettering will have lost some of their original sharpness. Small scratches, marks, and signs of circulation are also normal for this grade. For a regular circulated 1981 Canadian 5 cent coin in fine condition, the collector value is generally very modest. Current pricing information places ordinary circulated examples around the range in Canadian dollars, while Numista's current indication gives approximately $1.50, zero for fine condition. These values are estimates rather than guaranteed selling prices, because actual prices can vary according to the coin's appearance, buyer interest, and marketplace. So, if you have a normal 1981 Canadian 5 cent coin in fine condition, a reasonable current collector market estimate is around $2.60, 0 to $2.90, 0 with approximately $3.90, 0 being a useful general reference point. It is important not to confuse this ordinary fine condition example with high-grade certified coins, which can be worth considerably more. For example, uncirculated and high-grade examples can command dramatically higher prices. Coins in Canada lists much higher values for certified mint state examples, including figures that rise into the tens or even hundreds of Canadian dollars at very high grades. This shows why professional grading and exceptional preservation can make such a big difference. Collectors should also examine the coin carefully for unusual varieties or errors. The 1981 issue is documented with a possible variety involving doubling in the lettering around Elizabeth II. If your coin shows unusual doubling, it may deserve additional research rather than being valued simply as a normal circulated example. Another important point is that you should never clean an old coin simply to make it look brighter. Cleaning can create scratches and unnatural surfaces that may reduce collector appeal. If you own an interesting 1981 Canadian 5 cent coin, it is usually better to leave the original surface untouched and store it safely in a suitable coin holder. The 1981 Canadian 5 cent piece may not be a major rarity in ordinary fine condition, but it remains an interesting collectible because it represents Canadian coinage from the early 1980s and carries the classic beaver design that has become strongly associated with Canadian 5 cent coins. So, what is your 1981 Canada 5 cent coin worth today if it is a normal example in fine circulated condition? The realistic collector, with an approximate range of, depending on the exact condition and buyer demand. Exceptional mint state examples, proof issues, or genuine varieties can be worth substantially more. Thanks for watching. Happy clarity. Like, share, subscribe.